Something is clearly afoot.
He's gonna be so behind.
The first thing you say.
He's gonna be so behind.
All right.
I'm gonna have no clue.
All right. So this is 8.4. Okay. I didn't put that on there. So go ahead and make sure that that's listed on there. I realized that yesterday when I was looking at the sheet that last year's book where I got a lot of the group quizzes from, the order of sections was different. So yesterday's group quiz, I think, says 8.6 on it or something, but it's really 8.3, huh? Okay. I'm just saying that the numbering on it is weird, okay? So if you see things that seem to be off numbered, just kind of ignore that, and I'm apologizing. So, law of sine, or law of cosines. Law of sines is so much easier to kind of remember, okay? It's pretty straightforward. You got two sides, you got an angle.
Wait, we're switching.
Yes.
I just not understanding law of sine.
I still don't understand.
So, law of cosine says a squared equals b squared plus c squared. And that's usually true for what type of triangles?
Right.
For right triangles. This is not necessarily a right triangle. Okay, but watch what I'm going to add on here. Minus. I don't know why we're talking over there. 2 BC cosine of A. Well, the law of cosines better have cosines in it. Yes.
Answer is 75.4 if it's rounded.
Okay, you can talk to me about that later. So I want you to write that up and get your extra credit for that. Later. Okay, so look at b squared. Somebody tell me what b squared equals.
A squared plus c squared minus 2ac times, well, to the cos of b. Oh, I did that.
You did do that.
I'm gonna do the next one.
Okay, I'm listening.
Okay, ready? A squared plus b squared minus 2ab cos is.
And just so we're clear, this cosine, I'm using capital letters because it's the angle across from this side. Okay? So we need to know that. Okay? So let's try some problems. Do you want me to go back there? We're having a lot of fun today, aren't we?
No.
Yes,
She's always like this.
Rachel.
I want to go to bed.
I've dealt with this since kindergarten.
Mr. McConnell, I got up at 6 a.m. this morning. I'm more hyper than normal.
Any more? Used to work?
Anymore. I used to. And then I overused the breathing technique. My mom told me to
Hey,
hold
what's the
my
motto?
Stop breathing? Just stop breathing?
Stop breathing works well for me.
It does.
Now, the cosine is kind of weird. You know what? Let's go back to this and draw something real quick on this. So in relation to A, so if I'm trying to find A, okay, I'm going to be using squaring B, squaring C, subtracting B times C, and then using this angle. So as a visual, what we need to do to find A is that we're going to square, subtract 2 times in these times the cosine of that.
Oh my gosh.
So you don't really have to know these letters as much as kind of what's going on. For the law of sine, we know we have to use this angle on these 2 sides to find that other. I want to point out something. any problem you use the law of sine for, you can also use the law of cosine for.
Hey, there we go.
Which begs the question,
Do we need to learn it?
why do I need to know both? Because there'll be
sometimes-
questions on the test that say you must use the law of cosines.
How they gonna know?
The only advantage to the law of cosine is that it only has one trig function in it.
I like sine.
I personally like the sine one better, but in some respects, it makes life a little easier if you're finding the angle to do this. But I still think this one's more tedious. How will I know that you use the right method? Because I will see in your work that you use the right method.
Like on the final end of the year test, they won't ask you this law.
That's why.
In the final end of the year test, if it's multiple choice and they say use the law of cosines, do whatever way you want. If it is a short answer and they want you to type in stuff, then
Better use the right one.
then you should use the right one. I don't think that's going to happen. The way that I would ask the question if I was writing the test for the year is I would write something and say, have you used this formula, and it kind of work through it so that you're comfortable with it.
Can I do the?
Okay, so to find DE, Mark wants to tell us. So before we jump into it, though, I want to point out that this is what we're finding. So these are the sides that I'm going to be using, and this is the angle I'm going to use. So without even thinking like, oh, this is A, and this is B, and this is C, Mark says,
DE equals A squared plus 6 squared minus 2 8 times 6, and then times the cosine of 62. Is that correct?
yeah, close. So type this in our calculator and we get what?
That's the easiest one.
Do we round?
We'll talk about that in just, yes, we're going to round.
54.930799.
I got 1.87.
Check your mode.
54.9.
1 degree.
So this is what I get when I do that. Now I want to point something out is not quite right.
And then you have to.
Nothing's ever right anymore.
Something's afoot.
Something is afoot. So the formula does not say that this is what DE equals. It says DE squared.
So we have to radicalize that.
So we got to radicalize it. So this is squared. So I can keep this as squared and say that that's 54.9307. And better than rewriting this in is just going second square root, second answer. That gives me all the digits, even past here. So DE equals, yeah, can you bring it up here? Let's now round, now that we're done, we'll round to the 10th digit.
What is it so much harder than the sign? I really like the sign method.
I like the light blue.
So you forgot your 2.
What, 2?
Yeah, the formula calls for a 2
My literally
right here.
only goes to, my phone calculator literally goes to the most required.
So it'd be 6 squared plus 8 squared minus 2, 8 times 6, cost 62. Got 54, now square it.
Square root. And I may not say that this is to scale, but typically things are to scale. Does it look like this should be about 7.4? Okay. I also want to point out, what type of triangle is this? It's the scaling. It's also a what?
It's a triangle.
Scaling and
shape.
In terms of angles, what is it?
Oh.
It's acute, right?
Yeah.
So these rules work on triangles that are not 90 degrees. Question number 2.
Oh, this works? Wait, does sine work on every triangle?
Sine works on every
Why
triangle.
does this only work on minus a few triangles?
This works on every triangle.
Well, you just said that.
They said it doesn't work on 90s.
No, you said that.
I said this one works on every triangle. It doesn't have to be a 90-degree triangle.
Oh.
So let me ask you this question. For funsies, if I'm looking at this third one and we use it on a right triangle, what will this equal?
That equals negative 2AB.
What?
If I use this on a right triangle and C is our hypotenuse, what will this equal?
That equals negative
1/2.
Minus.
Half of the triangle.
180.
No.
Let me say it one more time. If this is a right triangle
It'd just be the angle, wouldn't it? It'd just be the
and
angle of
this
C
is the
cos C
hypotenuse,
Cosine C.
what would this whole square have to equal? It'd
Zero.
have to equal 0.
Because if it's
Why?
minus, if subtracting 2 of the AB, which is the side.
If this equals 0 and it's gone, then what do we have? The Pythagorean theorem. So they figured out, hey, the Pythagorean theorem works if you throw on this little other thing for non-right triangles. Question number B.
You had this much time to figure this out.
Yeah.
So we're looking for, guys, we're looking for GH. So GH squared equals, and in some ways, even though law of cosines is uglier, it's a little bit easier because all you do is type it in and then square root it, okay? 12 squared plus 18 squared minus 2 times 12 times 18 times cosine of 110. And I'm told the answer is 24.8. It's a little less brain power where instead of cross multiply and figure out what's going on. Okay. I also think it makes these next questions a little bit easier to use this one.
But there's no angle.
I think they're all scaling, but the point of me saying what type of triangle is it works on any triangle. So we're looking for this angle. Okay. So this is the side that there's the side that we're going to write as a solid line. I like to dot these ones. So the rule says I'm not going to write ZY. I'm going to write what? 4 squared equals
7 squared plus 6 squared minus 2, 7 times 6, cosine of x.
oh, of x.
Why do you write with pens?
I think it's easier for you to see. And I don't like writing with pencil. Dalton, what are you doing, dude? Can you close that and turn your headphones off and be a real boy? Like Pinocchio? Okay, so I'm going to do, in the calculator, I'm going to go ahead and do 4 squared minus,
Yeah, because you have to subtract 4 squared.
so it's going to be 4 squared minus 6 squared minus 7 squared.
Why is it all minus?
Because you got subtraction.
Okay, so to move this over and that over, I'm going to subtract.
Wait, I just did all the math. Like I did. I swear.
Okay, you can. So I get 4 squared minus 6 squared minus 7 squared. I get negative 69, which I feel pretty good about that it's negative. because now I'm going to divide it
A negative.
by this, whatever that is. Okay, so that's negative 84. Is that right?
Yeah, it is negative 84.
So negative 69 divided by negative 84 gives me this ugly thing.
Hey, don't talk about it like that.
So I get 0.821 junk equals cosine of x. Then to find x, I got to do what?
Do the negative one, please.
So
Yeah.
oh, sorry. So now I'm going to do second cosine or actually, I'm not going to type in 0.821. I want to hit second answer. So it brings down all those digits. Now that I'm done, I can round, and I'm going to round this to 34.8.
So I was doing it, and I did like all the math before so I got 16 on this side, and then I subtract, and then I did all the math over here, and I got 15. And then I put the cosine negative 1 in there.
I can't see the calculator.
So watch the next one. I think I'll try to clarify. So the thing we have to be careful of is that these parts here, when I move it over, I'm going to subtract. And this part here, when I move it over, I have to divide. Okay? So I can't combine these things all together. So if I were to do it kind of instead of like figuring out all these numbers for this next one, law of cosines, even though it was ugly, getting a little nicer to us. Feeling a little better about it.
Wait, so what's the angle? We just did it like that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I wrote it down. 34.8.
How did you get that?
So then I typed in
The whole entire thing.
cosine inverse, and then that answer.
Oh, you just do the answer? Okay, so I did something else for cosine.
Did you get that?
No, I didn't do that. I did some other numbers for the answer.
Okay. Are we good? Are some of us good? Ryan, are you good?
I'm still confused on how my answer got 15.
Okay. So 13 squared equals 11 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times 11 times 8 cosine of p.
Which one do we do?
Okay, so let's figure out what these numbers are starting off the bat.
13 squared is 169, and then
169.
11 is 129, and then 8.
So this is 121, and this is 64, so that's 185. Minus 2 times 11 times 8 is 176 cosine of p. What I think is a common mistake is people want to then subtract these two numbers. You are not allowed to do that. This is being multiplied by that. So it's attached to that. You got to subtract by 185. Okay, so I'm going to subtract by 185. And I kind of did all these steps super quick on the other one. You got negative, what'd you say? 16 equals negative 176 cosine of p. Now you divide by negative 176. Okay, so negative 16 divided by negative 176 gives me this
0.0909090909.
0.09 repeating equals cosine of p. So then in my calculator, I'm going to do second inverse of my answer, and I get 84.8 rounded. I probably would accept 85.
I got 84.4571466.
So did you type in 0.0909?
Can you move your calculator?
So go up. Did you get 0.0909?
Bro, this group is only got 7 questions.
So negative 16 divided by negative 176. Okay.
Do you accept A 4.8?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I put down.
Oh, okay.
Now, it's a weird, I'll tell you in calculus, if they don't tell you to round, you round to the third decimal place. Okay? And I always figure we're going to end up there anyway, so might as well follow that rule. But typically, if it doesn't tell you to round, I give you a little bit of leeway on where you round. Okay? I want to tell you one other thing, that there's a variation of the law of cosines that says, so let's go back to this and just kind of write this real quick. That says that the cosine of angle A equals A squared minus B squared minus C squared divided by, anyone want to guess what we're dividing by?
2.
Close.
3.
2BC.
Negative 2BC.
Dang, bro, it was all fun.
So all I did was I went up here and I moved. I'm solving for this. So I subtracted, and then divided. Some people like this one because if you're finding the angle,
That's great. That's a lot better.
it's exactly the same thing.
For cosine BC,
It's way better.
does it
I
matter
really-
that you're now doing cosine and have a like an uppercase A?
Uppercase A means the angle.
Yeah, this is angle lower.
So if I wanted to write this for cosine of B, angle B, it would be what?
Cosine B equals,
Say again.
cosine of B equals B squared minus A squared minus C squared over negative 2 AC.
Yep. And basically the drawing would be the same. So if we're talking about this one here, the cosine of A equals this thing squared minus this squared divided by 2, negative 2 of this and that.
What about cosine of C?
You want me to write it down? So cosine of C, can I put it up here?
Is it it's just the same thing? You trying to look at
Yeah.
Cosine of C equals, someone want to tell me?
C squared
Why do you start with C?
I think Ben does.
minus B squared minus A squared? No, really. What?
Yeah.
So
Ben
you-
did it, he's just not
Can you
saying
scoot your
anything.
paper down a teeny bit?
Divided by negative 2 CB?
No.
AB.
Yeah, Mark.
Is that what you need, Hope?
Yeah. I-
Are those that's it?
That's it.
We're both.
Any questions? So again, I keep trying to give us time in class.